Pat Dodson for that. Ivan Devitt with the invocation, please.
Please join me in prayer. Most Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, and thank you, Father, for the opportunities and blessings that you're bringing us. Thank you for everyone here today. We pray, Father, that you continue to be with us and guide us, show us how we can better serve others. And Father, we pray that you bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies, be with those who prepared it. We ask these things now in Jesus' name. Amen.
The pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Our sergeant of arms today, you can hold the applause or you can give him a full round of applause, is our very own Jack Weimer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Today is June 17th, and today we're going to have GRDA as our speaker, right? GRDA for speaker. You know, I had 2 trees blow down in my yard, 2 giant trees.
Y'all come take care of
it.
Yeah, right.
You know, I thought these would be very easily bulldozed right into the lake. But instead, I paid $4,000 to have someone come cut them up and haul them off. Okay? So, looking at the lake from my place, not too far from where the Neosho River comes in, I appear to be the only person in America who had my trees hauled off. Everyone else is dumping them into the lake. So, I just want a little rhythm next time I want to trim the rose bushes right next to the lake, you know. Okay. Anyway, June 17th. A couple of really fascinating things happened today. If you remember any history, who remembers the famous low-speed chase? Yes, low-speed chase. What was that guy's name again? Who? O.J. Simpson. Yeah, I remember now. Anyway, also in 1972, there was a little item that happened in the newspaper, in the Washington, the Washington Post. It said, burglary, Watergate, 5 guys arrested. That was pretty fun. That happened on June 17th. And on the very same day, on June 17th, 3 people were born. Okay, this is going to kill you. Number 1, Newt Gingrich. Number 2, Barry Manilow. And I just saw those 2 together and I just laughed. You know, okay. And then, for those of you who are aviation buffs, my friend Bert Bertan was born on June 17th, also that same day as Newt and Barry Manilow. So anyway, with no further ado and no more jokes about the trees coming down the lake or the floods in Miami or anything else, I'd like for you all to get out $1, unless you're a guest, and put it in the little blue book, or the little blue bucket. And I am only putting out one fine today, and that is Reverend Kuhn over here. You have not told us about your daughter before, and now you bring her after all the volunteer stuff is over, so that's a $5 fine. Anyway, thank you so much, Serena. Get out your dollars, get those hands into your wallet. Thank you.
Our Rotarian of the day is our very own Don Happy. Don?
Well, I just want to say a couple things. It was a great club when it came in, and it's even a better club today. Thank you for your leadership.
And he was not paid for that promotion, just so you know. We want to thank Austin with the Drift for that wonderful lunch that he prepared for us as always. And as Jack Weimer said, Mike Kuhn has brought his lovely daughter here with him today, Stephanie. Stephanie, great to have you with us. Stephanie is a Grove resident. She is a potential member. She does work. She shared this with us, so I feel free to share. She is working at Patricia Island with Jason Evans. So we're very fortunate to have her as a potential member. With Amanda Davis, with the SOAR partners is Scott Greenland. Scott, it's great to have Scott here with us today. And new member introductions, Diane Hampton.
We're doing our best to try to scare you off. Might have committed you.
Dwayne, Martha, all my blue badgers, I got the email. Let's see who read my email. Doug, very good. Pat, Christy, Sarah. Service-based on here. Okay, so that's mine. We should have everybody. Okay, so I have one red badge and the rest are blue badges today. But we're going to make everyone stay up here and get present their badges at the end. But I'll start off with Sarah Wilhelm with Christy as her sponsor. So.
Well, I am excited to introduce you to one of our new members, Sarah Wilhelm. I met Sarah several years ago. Actually, Judy met her first. So we can really thank Judy because Judy's like, we need to get this girl to grow. She needs to marry Joseph, so she needs to live here. And then I met her and I'm like, oh, you need to come help with Welcome Back. You need to become a Rotarian. And she is just an amazing girl and I'm just gonna make the perfect Rotarian. She has won numerous accolades, and awards, which she probably will not tell you about, but before coming to Bank of Grand Lake, she worked for the Electric Cooperative, where she and her team won the top cooperative communication and best external publication of the year, so she has a track record of success. But I also thought I would just share some interesting tidbits about her. She just ran her first half marathon. She worked for the Tulsa Ballet as a ballerina. No, perfect. Okay, I was just checking. You have the video. She's a great photographer. She's an excellent copywriter. She knows her way around her website. And get ready for this. She loves event planning. See? That's right. I told you she's going to make a great Rotarian. Okay, I also thought it would be helpful for me to do the Wilhelm breakdown because sometimes a male Wilhelm will come to Rotary and nobody knows who's with who. So Sarah is married to Joseph. Joseph is the high school band director. Now don't confuse that with Joe, his dad, who was the high school band director, or her newest baby, Joseph, who's the cutest Joe Wilhelm. Autumn is her sister-in-law, obviously. Autumn is married to Jordan. You know, Jordan owns Turquoise and Quail Run Golf Run. And then there's Jenny, who's married to Josh Wilhelm, who's the real estate agent and Autumn's partner in business. So I've seen Autumn bring Josh and everybody just assumes that it's her husband. But it might be easier when we're talking to the Wilhelm men and we're just like, hey Jay, what's up? Because they all start with a J. Maybe that's how we get through that. But Sarah, we are so excited to have you in Rotary. I know you're going to do an amazing job. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're looking forward to in Rotary?
So thank you so much, Christy. She's a great introductionalist, so I appreciate you. She's the reason I'm here. I'm a long-time visitor to Rotary, and I'm happy to be a member now. I'm really excited. I see a lot of friends in this room, so I'm excited to work with you guys and be a resource where I can. I lived in several cities and towns in Oklahoma, and I've never felt a stronger sense of community and belonging here in Grove. So I feel really, really lucky to be here with you guys. Of course, Miss Judy McHenry is our all-star designer, but I'm also here to help you guys where I can.
Judy's like, no,
yes.
Let me introduce her.
So please reach out if you guys need help with anything, and I'm happy to be here. Oh, okay. Sure, yeah, sure. So Oklahoma State, go Bucks. Sorry. But I got my BFA at Oklahoma State University. Worked in Edmond for a time. Worked in Tulsa for a time. Really enjoyed Tulsa, loved Tulsa, but met Joseph, and he's the one who got me here. So that was kind of a tough decision between the two, and I couldn't be more happy to be in Grove now. So that really worked out. We have 3 kiddos, 2 daughters, and our youngest, Joseph, is a year old now. So we're excited to add to the confusion. 3 Josephs now, so well into the future. Hopefully that'll continue to be. Thank you guys.
Okay, before I present the red badge to her, we'll go ahead and turn over to Mr. Dodson, or Pat Dodson, not Mr. No, fine, please.
No, fine, fine. Family's not here.
Yeah, of course.
But anyway, we're presenting Doug Brown, the new superintendent, a blue badge today instead of making him go through a red badge, because he's kind of a big deal in Rotary. He's been a Rotarian in Idabel, plus being president of the Rotary Club there. So he kind of knows stuff about Rotary, so why make him go through the red badge? We'll just put him right to work, okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Pat, where he can introduce him, and then we'll hear from Doug, since he's not going to do the red badge. We'll make him still talk.
All right, I'm probably going to keep it a little short. And Christy, she's had her job in PR for a reason. So Doug Brown, I've known him for several years. He and I have served on superintendent committees, the executive committee. We meet once a month in Oklahoma City. Probably 6 or 7 years ago, I met him. He has a history and a reputation of being a servant-minded leader, which is going to serve him well leading Ridge Runner Nation, as well as being a Rotarian. I'm going to allow him to give a little bit of his story to you. Last night was my last board meeting, so not quite officially done, but I've had a foot on the highway since I told him that I was retiring in January, and Doug Brown and I, he and I are actually co-superintendents right now for the month of June. He and I, we meet, he's been meeting with all these, everybody's coming in and trying to leverage him. The ones that I said no to, they're working their way in the office, and he and I have had great conversations, and my goal is just to share with him what it means to be a Ridge Runner and the servant-minded leadership that I expect to continue on, and I know our board did a great job in hiring him because he has a great reputation of being a leader. So, Doug Brown.
Like Pat said, my name is Doug Brown. I have been an educator for 32 years, just finished in 32 years, 17 years in the classroom. The rest of that time has been in administration. I was 9 years, almost 10 years as superintendent of Idabel Public Schools in Idabel, Oklahoma, far southeastern Oklahoma. I was, for the last 3 years, I've been assistant superintendent in Lawton, far southwest Oklahoma, and now I'm in far northeast Oklahoma here taking over. So I'm hitting every corner of the state. I'm not going to Guyan, I can tell you that. Guys, I have a BBA in business management. I have a business education degree from Southeastern. My business management degree is from UCO in Edmond. Played college football there for 4 years in their down years. And we weren't very successful as a football team there, but we just switched over to NCAA and playing up quite a bit stronger division. But played college football at UCO, got my degree there. Got my business education degree from Southeastern Oklahoma in Durant. I got my master's degree from Southern Nazarene University in educational leadership, and decided that was probably enough as far as paying for more education. But made some great strides in Idabel. Actually I coached in Idabel when we came up to Grove and Grove beat us a couple of times. I think we might have beat Grove up a time or two. But I can remember just the fan base and the community spirit when we drove all the way up here to play and to coach in it, and just was really always had a special place in my mind. And then the reputation that Grove has for excellence, and all across the state, wherever I've been in the state, Grove always comes up when you talk about education. So that was what's really attracted me to the location. Really appreciate the efforts of everybody. Christy introduced me to, I think, 1,000 people at Lobster Fest. Really, but if I've met you before, please introduce yourself again, because I don't remember, right? She overwhelmed me. Anyway, so I'm my past, my history in Idabel. I was an Idabel Rotarian. My grandfather was a charter member of the Idabel Rotary in Idabel. He was there for a Rotary member for a long time. When I came back as superintendent, I joined Rotary for 9 years, was able to be the president of Rotary. That was honored to do that. And when I moved to Lawton, we had in our district, we had several Rotarians, so my superintendent directed me to not join Rotary and go to the Lawton Philharmonic Board. So I've been on the Philharmonic Board at Lawton for the last 3 years. We've done a lot of things, done a lot of concerts for kids, brought in orchestra people from all over the country. My Rotary history is we raised money there and did things for the school just like we do here. Definitely not near the scale you guys have done and showing support. And as I will say, I'm still amazed at the level of support of not just the Rotary, but the Grove as an entire community, and how much support you guys give Grove Public Schools, and I appreciate that. I want to say thank you now. I'm sure that that's going to continue, and I hope that it continues, and I will do anything I can to serve and be a part of this community and part of Rotary.
Thank you very much.
I thought I felt something. Was it a spider?
Might have been.
Of all things.
Oh, thank you. You're
Leave it to
Jack. My favorite.
Okay.
I have chills.
Now I'll present the red badge to Sarah.
He's still alive.
Sorry.
You're on tape. I know, this is great.
Red badge to Dwayne.
I thought he was washing feet here or something.
Okay, let's give them a round of applause. Hands together.
That's stuff for us to squeeze. Gotta lose that suit coat, bro. Look at Pat, you know? I know.
I'm released my tie. I don't have the tie on today.
He's gonna have them on too.
I can't top Christy dancing around like that, so it's on video. You can watch it on YouTube later. Now for the introduction of our program. Justin Alberti has been a member of the Grand River Dam Authority Corporate Communications Department for over 30 years. In this role, he directs media relations and public relations programs, serves as lead corporate spokesperson, and as Public Information Officer for the GRDA Law Enforcement Division. He is an advocate for water safety, electric safety, and public power all across Oklahoma. He is also a frequent presenter to various groups across the area, sharing information on a wide range of GRDA topics. For several years, he has also served as the organization's historian. Away from work, he is a regular contributing columnist for the Pryor Pulse newspaper, serves as a deacon in his church, and operates a small woodworking shop. He and his wife have 3 daughters, 1 son-in-law, and a granddaughter. Please welcome Justin Alberti.
Clicker. It's right there in that chair.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to come back. Talked to Judy a week or 2 ago about the program, and I said, well, what do you want me to talk about? She said, well, can you talk about GRDA history, how the dam came to be? And my eyes lit up, like, yeah, I can do that. You know, it's kind of being the unofficial historian for the organization for a couple of years now. This is very close to my heart. One, it's close to my heart because I've been there 32 years now, and you kind of want to know the history of your organization after a while, and it's important to preserve it, and you know, to share it and to curate it. So that makes me happy that I can share some of that today. But also, I got interested in the history just because I'm from the area. I grew up in Salina, you know, just not too far from Lake Hudson, not too far from the Grand River. So it's kind of where I'm from. And GRDA's had a big impact on where I'm from and where we live today. So I love the chance to come talk about history and share some stories. Now, in the time I have, I obviously can't get to all of it, so I want to hit some of the what I think are some of the high notes about the construction of Pensacola Dam. We're going to focus there today. GRDA is 91 years old now, but we're going to talk about the first few years, maybe a little bit of the prehistory of GRDA, and then really focus on the construction of Pensacola Dam. Talk about some of the big moments and some of the personalities. Obviously not all the personalities. Some of this may resonate with some of you. You maybe heard some of these stories before, or some of them that you thought maybe that's a fact, but somebody else said it was fiction. So hopefully we're going to delve into what's not fact or what's not fiction, and back and forth. And I hope to have time at the end to answer a few questions for you. So anyway, how Pensacola Dam came to be. Of course, there on my very first slide, that's an artist rendering. Actually, that picture is from the 1930s on some kind of a publication they did before the dam was constructed. The powerhouse looks a little bit different than that, but if you've taken the tour of the powerhouse at all, you know that's pretty close, actually. So that's just kind of a nice artist drawing of what it was going to be with the iconic arches of Pensacola Dam there in the background. So, why the Grand River? Before we can talk about Pensacola Dam, let's talk about why Grand River. Why would they want to ever put a dam, hydroelectric facility across the dam, the Grand River? Well, the river was really ideal for that sort of thing. What I have there on the screen, if you can read it, is an excerpt from W.R. Holloway. He was the consulting engineer on the project, as well as his firm was consulting engineers on GRDA's other hydro projects in the years to come after Pensacola Dam. This is an excerpt from his book called A History of the Grand River Dam Authority, which I have 2 separate copies of in my office, and I've read cover to cover several times over the years, and gives a lot of detail, and I'm so grateful that this book exists, especially now as GRDA starts inching towards that 100th anniversary. Still 9 years away, but it's not too early to be planning. So the river channel had a good width, well-defined banks. It's changing a little with the years. The valley floor is narrow, rarely exceeding 2 miles in width, and so on there. The stream has a fall of 2 feet per mile, adapted to the development of water storage reservoirs and hydroelectric plants. So it really made a good, it was a good fit for hydroelectric production. That picture there is a picture of the river, obviously before the dam was built. I had to crop it out because they had already started construction, so I cropped all the construction out. I didn't have a good picture of the Grand River before the dam, but that shot is taken right there about where if you were standing on arch number 1 there on the west end of the dam now, kind of along the Langley Bluff there is where that picture would be. So, okay, so we know why the river now was a good fit for that, but where did the idea for damming the Grand River really come from? Well, Henry Holderman, a man named Henry Holderman, is really credited with being the first to come up with that idea. He grew up in, I believe, the Wyandotte area. And as a young man, you can see that quote there is actually from a 1939 thesis by Mr. Eldon Jackson that I was able to come across. He was a student at Oklahoma A&M College. Go Pokes. Somebody said it earlier. Say it again. Go Pokes. And he wrote, in 1939, he put this thesis together when the dam was still being constructed. He was already writing about the history of, the prehistory of GRDA. But he interviewed Mr. Holderman. There's a quote from Mr. Holderman, kind of a segmented quote. I've not got it all on the screen. But the idea for a dam, the idea came to him when he was a young man, about 6 years old, when he would go with his father down to a sawmill close to Spavinaw on the river. And of course the sawmill operated on water power. And he had the idea then, well, what if we just dam the whole river? Think about the electricity we could bring to the Cherokee Nation, because he was a Cherokee, remember the Cherokee tribe. Think about all the electricity we could bring to the Cherokee Nation if we did that. So they kind of stuck with him the rest of his life, and he spent the next 50 years promoting that and trying to make it happen. He was involved in a couple other corporations like the Grand Hydro Corporation and the Grand Hydroelectric. There were 3 or 4 of them over the years, through the 20s and the 30s and on, where they tried to get this going before GRDA ever even existed. For whatever reasons they couldn't, because of World War I, because of the Great Depression, things like that, always prevented them from getting the funds to really get it done. But even as a young man, when he was in 1886, I think it was the summer of 1886, or 1896, as a young man, he and his brother built a homemade houseboat. And they brought along 2 friends that were actually engineering students at the Spalding Institute, I think it was in Kansas City. They spent the summer floating the entire Grand River, looking for possible sites to build a dam someday. And 50 years later, that's one of the sites they picked is where Pensacola Dam basically ended up. It's not the same location. So, we know why the river, we know kind of who sparked the idea originally. Well, GRDA was created in April of 1935. To be, it says there on the screen, a conservation and reclamation district for the waters of the Grand River. So the Grand River itself, I tell people when I do these presentations, it's truly an Oklahoma resource. It's created where the Neosho comes out of Kansas, where the spring comes out of Missouri. They come together and they flow for about 135 miles till they empty into the Arkansas River down at close to Muskogee. So it runs here along the foothills of the Ozarks, truly an Oklahoma resource, and a GRDA was created in 1935 to be the conservation and reclamation district for this Oklahoma resource, with an eye towards constructing the dams on the river someday. Only problem was, this new agency had no money to do that with. So the agency's in place, the idea's in place, the landscape is right for it, but we don't have any funds to do it with yet. So, come on, clicker. There, whoop, that's the wrong one. So, helping to promote the idea during that era, right after GRDA was created, we owe a lot to these men that we call the Rainbow Chasers. Some of you may have heard that term before if you've been familiar with any GRDA history at all. 4 men from Bonita and Grove that at their own expense traveled to DC on several occasions, lobbied politicians, they promoted the idea around the regions, anybody that would listen to them talk about it. They helped just keep the project idea alive after GRDA was created, but before any funds were there. So there was Jack Borshaw, who was a state senator. He actually wrote the legislation that created GRDA. George Schaefer owned a stationery store in Bonita. Owen Butler was in the newspaper business, the Butler family, the newspapers here in Grove. He was part of that. And then Clay Babb, and I'm sorry I don't have a photo of Mr. Babb. I've looked through the files and I've not been able to locate one yet. If I have located one, I've not been able to ID him yet. But these 4 men were known as the Rainbow Chasers because of their pursuit of building Pensacola Dam, of damming the river, and again, at their own expense. They saw the vision. They caught this vision early on and realized what a hydroelectric facility could mean. Not only a hydroelectric facility, but a recreation facility, water supply, irrigation. In the early days of GRDA, they really looked at the dam for irrigation purposes as well, almost as much as electricity. So we owe a lot to these men as well, the Rainbow Chasers, and I like to share that photo and tell a little bit about their story. Of course, you got to have somebody in DC too, right? You want to get some funding at some point in Washington DC. And there are others I could mention, other senators and representatives over the year, but I set these two aside specifically. Elmer Thomas was a senator from Oklahoma in those years, and Wesley Disney was a U.S. House of Representative member. Disney, this is where we get the name for Disney. The town of Disney was from Representative Disney. They were there in the late 30s doing the same thing that the Rainbow Chasers were doing here. They were at the Capitol in D.C., lobbying everybody they could lobby, supporting the funding to build this project. And this was really during an era, of course it was the Depression, and there were a lot of Works Progress Administration projects going on. The Tennessee Valley Authority was being born being organized out in the southern part of the United States, out east. And so there was a lot of momentum for this kind of thing. So these men were 2 that like I said, I like to point out that were very involved in that from Oklahoma, that really put in the time and the effort as well to see this come to fruition. And I pull this out here because of the picture I'm going to next. This is the Craig County Democrat. Tomorrow it'll be 90 years since this newspaper first ran. Craig County Democrat, June, you can't see it up there, June 18th, 1936. You see what I've got headline there. 1,000 seat President Roosevelt Saturday evening. Has anybody ever heard the story about how they need to stop the president's train? Okay. So, some people say that didn't really happen, that he never got off the train, that he stayed in the car. Well, this article I came across just a month or so ago that details the whole event. And what happened was they were trying to get funding for this project. And FDR was on a campaign whistle stop. He was on a train doing a whistle stop tour through the central United States. He had been in San Antonio, and he was headed to Indiana for a Sunday afternoon rally. Well, the civic leaders in Bonita got word that the train was going to pass right through Bonita. So they thought, well, how can we bend the president's ear about funding for the Grand River project. What can we do? Well, somebody came up with the idea, let's just stop the train. So, the way they did that is they got together, the civic leaders in Bonita, the city council in Bonita, had an emergency meeting on this Saturday afternoon. They passed an ordinance that required any presidential train passing through Bonita, Oklahoma is required to stop for 10 minutes. That's the law. They passed this as a law. This really happened. Then they wired ahead to the president's train that was coming through McAllister about that time, headed north, to inform the president, look, you're required to stop in Bonita, Oklahoma. It's the law. So, reports say FDR got a kick out of it, decided why not. So, the article says that they kind of pulled into the southern edge of Bonita and stopped and waited until they got the all clear from security and everything like that. And they rolled on into the depot of Bonita, where they were met by thousands of people. Thousands of people about 8:30, 9 o'clock on a Saturday night in mid-June in Bonita. They were holding up signs saying, let's build the Grand River Dam. We want this project, all this signs and noisemakers and whatever. The article says that I'll go to the next slide. President Roosevelt did get off the train, or didn't get off the train, walked out to the back of the train. That's not an actual photo from his Bonita stop, but very similar scene. Mr. Roosevelt started to speak as Mrs. Roosevelt touched his arm and drew his attention to a large sign which read, "You are now within 14 miles of the Grand River Dam," which the dam wasn't there yet, but you were within 14 miles of the site where they wanted to build the Grand River Dam. The president squinted his eyes to read it, and as a voice repeated the statement through a loudspeaker, Mr. Roosevelt laughed and said, "I have been thinking of the Grand River Dam as we came along," whether he had or not, it's a good political speech. "I know the geography of your country, and I hope something can be done about it in the future." Got a laugh out of it, got a kick out of it. Somebody went and presented him with a stringer of catfish from the Grand River. Here's a little gift for you, Mr. President. Thanks for stopping in Bonita, Oklahoma on your whistle-stop tour. The article said the catfish from the Grand River, right? The article said that the security checked it out. Yeah, these look fine. They're all good to go. They took them inside the train, and the train started slowly rolling out of sight, and he and Mrs. Roosevelt kind of waved at the crowd till they were outside. So, small town Bonita, Oklahoma, kind of there on the spur of the moment, put this together to bend the president's ear, and it was successful because then, a little over a year later there, you see in September 30, 1937, he approved a federal allocation of $20 million for the Grand River Dam project. So, you like to think that his 10-minute stop in Bonita where he got the stringer catfish had an impact on him. So, but yes, that actually took place. So, now we've got the funding in place, we've got the location, we've got the idea, we've got the promotion. This man, I'd like to share this because he was very important to the early days of GRDA. That's consulting engineer W.R. Hallway, is his name. He had a firm in Tulsa for many years, Hallway and Newford, and it became Benham Holloway, and it may still exist as Benham today. But he was the engineer chosen, the consulting engineer chosen to oversee the construction of Pensacola Dam. He was also, 15, 20 years before that, had been the engineer on the Spavinal project. You guys are familiar with the Spavinal Lake and the gravity flow that supplies the city of Tulsa with water from Spavinal. He engineered all that, built all that. After Pensacola Dam in the early 50s, he also engineered the Lake Uchi project. So he's very familiar with hydro and water assets and all this here in northeast Oklahoma. Then, as I said, they went on to oversee construction of Robert S. Kerr Dam on Grand River between Salina and Locust, and the Salina Pump Storage Project also there in 1968. And he wrote the book. I already mentioned that he wrote the book. Prior to all this, in the 20s, in the era kind of before communism came to Russia and Cuba, he had also built some hydro projects in those places overseas. So very, very well known for his era, just a very prominent engineer and hydrologist. And if you go to Pensacola Dam today, you walk through it or you tour it, you start to get an appreciation for what they did in between 1938 and 40 to complete that without any software, right? No CAD design system, no computer. This was all slide rule and brain power that they built this project when they built this project. So he gets a lot of credit for that, and as I've said, a lot of our history survives because of him. So the work begins. Got the money, got the engineer, got the plans in place, the work begins. There's just a quip also from his book. November 18th, the board approved the engineering contract and the proposal to start. We had agreed to start work within a week, and on October 25th, they had a field trip there to start surveying on the Pensacola Dam site. At that time, GRDA had their office in Veneta in the bank building there on the second floor, and that last paragraph really stands out to me on that. The wooden stairs to the authorities' door clattered all day long with hundreds of applicants for jobs. People needed work. This was during the Depression. This was 1938. And people lined up. They poured into the region for work. Because of the way Pensacola Dam was built, because it's a multiple arch design, it doesn't use as much material as like a monolithic, maybe Hoover Dam, or just kind of a monolithic one solid wall of concrete might use. It's a different design. It's very iconic with the arches. So it didn't require as much material, which was good because of the Depression and materials were hard to get. But to build that design, you needed a lot more manpower, which was there because it was the Depression and everybody needed to work. So all the timing came together, and of course Disney and Langley, the towns that would spring up, kind of became boom towns as 3,000 men and women kind of poured into the area to start working on this project. So there's just kind of a timeline on Pensacola Dam construction. First concrete was poured on December 30th, 1938. That really initiated an around-the-clock, and by around the clock I mean day and night, an around-the-clock pour of concrete that lasted about 18 months. They brought in big lights and they would work at night and pour concrete overnight, and build the forms and pour the concrete, slide the forms up, pour the concrete, whatever they needed to do to get it done, on and on around the clock. They had the safety nets, the same safety nets that they had used to construct the Golden Gate Bridge were used on this project because the work was going fast, and accidents happened, unfortunately. They lost 13 lives in construction of Pensacola Dam. But this was an era before OSHA, right? Things were done differently and things happened fast. But there, January 25th, 1939, first load of aggregate arrived by train to the Pensacola construction site. If you go down below, if you ever played golf down there, been to the dam, to the powerhouse, you cross over the river below, that road was the train bridge, railroad bridge prior. So of course they had a concrete plant down there, they had engineered cabins down there, they had dormitories, they had all that going on down there where the golf course and all that is today. So January 26th, hydroelectric turbines, the first 4 turbines were installed. I'll switch hands here. Pensacola Dam has 6 hydroelectric turbines. The first 4 were installed by 1940. The other 2 came a little later. One of those was installed, I think, in 42, and one a little bit after that. So originally it had 4, but it was always intended to have 6. There was always going to be space for 6. And it's kind of an aside here, but 4 turbines in rugged rural Oklahoma then, people looked at that and said, GRDA, you'll never, ever have a market to sell all that electricity. Where are you going to sell all that electricity to? Well, 1939, 1940, it made sense, right? It was really more of a luxury at the time. But these men and women who were involved in this project saw how it was going to be transformative for the region. So today, hydro accounts for about 15%, I think, of our total generation capacity. But at the time, 4 hydro units were more than we were ever going to be able to market. Final gates were closed in March of 1940. There's a little bit of history around that. Governor Red Phillips was governor of Oklahoma at the time. He did not want the gates closed because he was in a fight with GRDA over a highway controversy. Governor Marlin had been in office when the project had started. He made a deal with GRDA on funds to relocate some of the roads and to build bridges and things like that around what would become Grand Lake. Governor Phillips came in, about halfway through construction, didn't think that there was enough funds, didn't really like the deal, said nope, this is not going to happen. On March 12th or 13th, 1940, he mobilized the Oklahoma National Guard, declared martial law, and sent the Guard to the construction site to stop construction of Pensacola Dam. But a court said, the GRDA or the engineers went to the court said, no, Governor Marlin or Governor Phillips, you can't do that. So they went ahead and finished the project, closed the gates then on March 21st. September 28, 1940, GRDA Chairman Ray McNaughton from Miami, he's the one that actually, at this ceremony, flipped the switch to ceremonially start the generators and deliver electricity for the first time. So since September of 1940, Pensacola Dam has been generating hydroelectric power, and it pretty much looks like it did then if you walk in the powerhouse. It's not going to look a lot different than it would have looked on that day back then. So, just some construction activity photos there, like the neat photos. That group in the bottom of those ladies, the caption said, Disney Bud Pinners. I have no idea what that means. But just some other shots of some of the workers there, of the 3,000 men. You know, you just don't want these people to be lost to history because of what they did. Some of you, I'm sure, in here, talking to a group like this, is bound to have somebody that worked on the project, or you know somebody that worked on the project. My grandpa was from Salina, but he was worked on the project, and he rode back and forth from Salina every day, which had to be costly in 1939. He was 19 years old, and he told me that he did it for about a month or two, and then the guy he was riding back and forth with got a promotion and was able to afford a room in Langley, and my grandpa didn't get that promotion, couldn't afford the room, so he lost his job. Lost his ride and lost his job. So that's kind of how it went. More shots there, construction activity. That's the turbine there in the middle. If you drive across the dam today, and from the west to the east there on the west side, on the south side, on the bluff there, you'll see one of those turbines. Maybe that same turbine, I don't know. One of those hydroelectric turbine that we put on display several years ago, one of the water wheels, the original water wheels, we call them. So just some more shots there down at the construction site. And while construction was underway, as you can imagine, it was kind of the biggest thing going in Oklahoma at the time. And people would come from all over to get an update of what was going on. They would drive over. I've talked to people who lived in the area at the time that had memories of the construction. They'd say our family would load up in the car, and on Sunday afternoon we would drive over just to sit on the bluff and look and see what they had done. You know, or at other times through the week they'd drive over and sit and watch them work on it and just kind of imagine what was going to come to be there. So impressive sight to see there. You can kind of see the crowds in the lower left. That might have been the opening day, that picture in the lower left when cars were allowed to cross the dam for the first time. I know that one there, the big picture on the right is. So you could tell by those cars, back in that day, you could have any color car you wanted as long as it was black, it looks like. So, now, anybody driven over the dam and you get a little white knuckle driving over the dam today? Okay. Well, it's no wider than it was in 1940. In 1940, I don't think they anticipated the kind of automobiles we could be driving in 2026. We do have an occasional mirror slapper on the dam, unfortunately, where a couple of big rigs get a little close. But anyway, and those people there on the observation deck, that's on Arch 5 there in the big picture. You can still walk out there and look over the dam from that location today. So boomtowns, Langley, I talked about the people pouring in here. Langley and Disney were kind of boomtowns. And that photo in the upper left is a Mr. and Mrs. L.A. Fennell. They owned a farm, they owned land and farmed along where present day Disney is today, there along the river. I found that photo in a Tulsa World article about them because the article talked about how they had, after they'd sold their land, you know, and I guess I got a little bit of fame for it, I'm not sure, but they had visited Tulsa for the first time. They'd never been in a city as big as Tulsa. And they rode an elevator and went into a multi-story building. But Mr. and Mrs. Fennell were farmers, and they sold the land that eventually became, originally owned the land that eventually became the town of Disney. A man named, I believe it's C.D. Armstrong or C.R. Armstrong was kind of the developer, promoter for the town of Disney. That photo in the middle, the caption reads Disney opening day, so I'm assuming opening day of the dam. You can see the crowds back there in the streets. and pouring into the boomtown of Disney, which at the time was touted as the Venice of the Southwest. That's the literature we have. Over on the right is a man named J. Howard Langley. Of course, Langley, where we get the name Langley. J. Howard Langley was at one time Oklahoma Supreme Court Justice. He was an attorney. I think he was maybe even mayor of Pryor at one time. He was a very, very strong advocate for the construction of the dam in the 30s. I have a lot of correspondence of his where he wrote letters to Will Rogers and to other politicians and really pushed for this to become a reality. He saw the vision not just for what it meant for Northeast Oklahoma, but really what water development could mean for the entire Mississippi River Valley. Fortunately, Mr. Langley died in 1937 before construction even started on the dam. But he was a member of the first board. We have the next board member here, Mr. Pete Churchwood. J. Howard Langley was one of your counterparts 8 years ago. He was actually the first permanent chairman of the GRDA Board of Directors. But he did. He passed away before construction ever began. So, and there below it is what they call engineers camp. That's on the bluff. That picture, that long skinny picture, that's on the bluff where kind of the Langley Park is now, where the ball fields are and all that, kind of overlooking the dam. That was where engineering housing, there was a lot of houses built up there when they were constructing the project originally. So, boomtowns, the area grew around either side of the dam during the construction period. I'm starting to wrap up here so I can take some questions. People say, well, why was it important to bring electricity here? And I like to show this picture. I like to show this picture to the school kids and ask them, what is that lady doing? And nobody knows. So I wish I could show some of these kids a rotary phone and say, what's this guy doing? And nobody would know. So, electricity is going to change her life, right? Now we've got REC in the room, or we got PSO in the room, and rural areas, electricity was a game changer. You know, I mean, prior to the construction of Pensacola Dam, you had electricity in the cities. But to get electricity out here in the rural area was really a challenge because there really wasn't a lot of return on investment to build power lines all the way out here through this rugged rural landscape and then to hope to get your return on investment. So it had to be, if they were going to do it, they were going to have to do it themselves. So Pensacola Dam, you know, was there, and suddenly we could sell power to market power to smaller municipalities around the area, and most of our municipalities have been with us for at least 70 years now. Several of them have been with GRDA for 75 years. But I like to show this picture and tell the kids, that's my great-grandma, which it's not, but I tell the kids that. She's washing clothes, right? And it's hard to tell from this picture because the quality's not great, but she could take every one of us down with that right forearm of hers in an arm wrestling match. Right? Life was hard for her. Electricity was going to make life easier. For us, we kind of take it for granted, you know, we have it all the time. It was a game changer for her. Electricity was really a game changer. So I like to think that's what GRDA was involved in, and all these people were involved in, and everybody who was involved in getting electricity to the rural areas, not just GRDA, but REA and all those that helped bring it out here, was going to make her life easier. So I go back to what I said earlier. They said there would never be a market for all that power. Early on, there wouldn't have been. You know, early on, what are you going to use it for? Maybe if you're fortunate, you can buy an electric washing machine. Maybe you can get a light, because in the early days of power production, it was only available at night because you only needed it for your street lights or for your light in your house. Well, then businesses in towns like Grove and small towns said, you know, business owners said, we want a day current, which is electricity that flows during the day. Why? Well, we want to be able to have a fan running in our business during the day. Customers will stay in longer if they're cooler. So all of a sudden, electricity, little things like that started. And of course, as technology came around with more devices powered by electricity, and of course, it's taken off to where it is now. But in the early days, it was just going to simply be a game changer for her on the farm, a time saver, and maybe her shoulders and back wouldn't hurt as much at the end of the day. So. And then my final shot there is just where we are today. Pensacola Dam, Grand Lake. We're up on the other side of Grand Lake, but that's what we look like today. All 51 arches spread out across there. You see the powerhouse and what was once the Grand River Valley. It's now Grand Lake, and that is a quick synopsis. And like I said, I didn't fill in all the blanks and all the other stories that I can, but that is just kind of a quick look at how Pensacola Dam came to be and why it was important to so many people in the area. So, yes, sir.
Well, going back to your slide rule comment, obviously there were no computers or hydrology and hydraulic modeling back in the day. And I was told or heard somewhere that you can confirm or not, that they had a 5-year plan for the buildup of the elevation of the water. They had a 5-year plan for getting rid of all the cemeteries, communities, bridges, but it filled up after 1 year instead of 5 years.
Yeah, the question was, there was a 5-year plan to fill up the lake and develop the area, basically. It did. It filled up. I think it surprised everybody that it filled up as fast as it did. The construction period was one of the driest periods on record. So they got lucky during construction, or I say they got lucky. You know, one of the driest periods on record. Rains and storms did not slow down construction much from December 38 till they were done. But then they did hit a rainy period right after the dam was completed. And it did. It filled up in, I mean, even before the final, there's pictures, even before the final arches are done, before the gates are closed, of people out in the water, partying, recreation in the water. So yes, that all came on a lot speedier timeline than anticipated.
But it covered up like Native American.
There are some places, yeah, they moved, of course they moved. Bernice had to be relocated. You know, there were several archaeological digs. I've got some records on some of the cemetery removals. You know, in a lot of cases, they were working as fast as they could, and they would contact people and ask them if they wanted their relatives' remains moved or not. And a lot of cases, people said, no, just don't disturb them, just leave them where they are, you know, forever under the water. So I think the timeline probably did catch them off guard some back then. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Most dams are designed for about a 100-year service life. It's like driven by the sediment they build up. Does GRDA have a sediment mitigation program?
We established our ecosystems department in 2004, kind of a very active ecosystems and watershed management department. That's one of the things they look at, you know. When I've talked to them and kind of that subjects came up, when I've had conversations with them, of course I'm not the expert, they've all told me there's not near as much sediment there as you would expect after all these years, you know. So, but I know people that have lived around the lake, been around the lake a lot longer than me, will tell you that, you know, in the 70s, you could see 3 feet down, you know, or whatever it is, and it's different now. So I'm sure there is some sediment. I don't think it's as according to our eco department, it's not nearly what they expected it to be at this point. But the dam is 86 years old. You know, it's been there a long time. So I can tell you from just a structural standpoint that it is tested just about every year. You know, we do core sampling down between the arches and things like that to make sure it's all stable. And right now, everything is very stable. Yes, ma'am.
So my grandparents built a cabin on the lake. A family story is based off of the map of where the lake was supposed to come up to. And at the last minute, my grandpa decided to move it back a couple hundred feet. And thank goodness he did, or we've been underwater. So I'm just curious, was there really a map like that? And did places like grow? Did the lake come to where they assumed it would?
Did the lake come everywhere? The question is, did the lake rise to everywhere they thought it was going to rise? Was it at its normal level? It's a good question. I don't know. I've seen some maps from that era. I do know that there was a period way back in the 50s when they would drop it a lot lower than they do now. I mean, it would go down to 735. You know, they would just generate it out, you know, as low as they can. I know that, and again, like the question earlier, you know, there were several towns that had to be moved because they thought they were going to be inundated, and some of those were. Without kind of the modeling and the technology we have today, I'm sure there was a little bit of just estimation. There would have to be, I would think, you know. The engineers from that day may stand here and tell me differently. No, it did exactly what we thought, but I would think that based on just the technology and the knowledge that they had available at the time, you know, maybe it did hit different in some places, yes. Yes, sir.
You were talking about fact and fiction, you know, myth and stories. My dad poured concrete on the dam, and
he tells a story of when the divers were sitting down to clean, to make sure that the turbines were ready, nothing was there, that they saw catfish so large that they were scared. They came right up and walked off the job. Now that was his story. Any truth to it?
We've given so many tours over the years, and people will come in and say, tell us that story on a tour. I've heard there are catfish down there big enough to swallow a manhole.
Yeah.
Maybe so. I've never seen one like that. It's who knows what they saw, divers saw down there. I do know if you stand at the tail race today on the backside of the dam when we're generating and kind of look over the edge at the water boiling up, from and all the foam and that very oxygenated water that the fish really love, you'll see some big ones roll up there on occasion. So maybe the monster's down there that nobody's ever caught yet. So it's a very large fish. Yes, indeed. Yes, sir.
Do you have any books or anything about the history of the GRDA that we could acquire?
Well, there is the Hallway book I told you about. The thing about Hallway's book is it only goes to 1968. He started writing the prehistory of GRDA to 1968 when he retired or finished. Now, what we've got since then, we've got kind of a photo book out there. I had to locate some copies of it, but we did produce a photo book about 10, 15 years ago of just all the pictures of construction in Pensacola, with a lot of captions and what was going on. One of the things I am working on myself is trying to write the rest of the history from 1968 through the first, so we've got the first 100 years covered. We've got it, I guess my best answer is we've got a lot of the history in various forms. We don't have it all put into one book just yet. But if you're interested in the first 30 years, we do have that in Hall's book, yes.
Sounds like you need to write a book.
Working on it. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Next week's program is my last meeting, so you can go ahead and give me the round of applause, and you survived 52 weeks of me. Thanks, guys. Thanks to Justin, thanks to Austin with Drift. We're picking everything up, all tables and chairs, and if you will stand, we'll adjourn with the 4-way test.